July Common Council meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. It's lonely up in the front, so due to a compressed committee schedule tonight and some discussions, our meeting will now get underway, so appreciate the patience on that. Item number 2 on our agenda is the roll call. We don't have a voting machine here tonight, but we've got one member, the council president, who indicated he couldn't be here tonight, but thank you all to the rest of you for being here. Item number 3 is a presentation of the colors by the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department Honor Guard, and followed by a Pledge of Allegiance and silent prayer in lieu of invocation. I invite you all to please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 5 on our agenda this evening is the administration of oath of office for Police Chief Ermin Blevins. We've got the assistant in the clerk's office to come forward to do the administration of the oath. And Chief, if you wouldn't mind coming to the center as well, and I'll set up the microphone as we normally do.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ermin Blevins, having been duly selected to serve as Chief of the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Now, having ceremoniously gotten that out of the way, I do want to welcome Chief Blevins to the city officially. I was able to meet his wife just now, so it was nice to meet her. Welcome to Wisconsin Rapids as well. I know the Police and Fire Commission spent many months going through the process to fill the vacancy of the police chief, and want to thank all of our police and fire commissioners for their diligence and amount of effort and days of screening candidates, as well as the candidates which applied for the position. So thank you and welcome. Chief, did you want to say anything to the council tonight? Make sure your microphone is on if we wouldn't mind, so you can pick you up on the recording. There we go. Thank you.
Again, I'll just reiterate how pleased my wife and I are with the area and with the community. We're very happy to be here. We've been looking forward to coming up here for a long time, whether in retirement or now. I'm glad we're here now. And again, it's a wonderful community. We're so happy to be here and look forward to being here for quite some time. And I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity.
Thank you and welcome. All right, we'll move on to item number 6 on our agenda, is the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting, which is attachment number 1 in your packets. Council members, what are your wishes regarding the minutes of the previous meeting?
Make a motion to accept the minutes and place on file.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Koth, second by Kubaschak. And we'll move into discussion. Are there any modifications or corrections to the minutes as they're presented? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 7 is the explanation of the visitor speaking procedure. Individuals wishing to address the body may do so tonight on items that are appearing before our agenda, which they'll be invited to the podium and be allowed to speak for no more than 5 minutes. We also ask individuals doing so to introduce themselves for the record. Item number 8 this evening is my report. Good evening, council members, staff, and those here watching from home. It's officially summer now, and the temperatures remind us that, and I'm happy to share with you this month's council update. On airport this afternoon, in a press release that I issued jointly with our state senator, pleased to support that the state senate has included $4 million for airport improvements out at Alexander Field. That's huge news for our community. We hope that the state assembly and the governor will agree and concur on the project, that it's a worthwhile endeavor for the state to be investing in. And so watch for more information on that to come. But hot off the press this afternoon was that it's been a pleasure working jointly with both Senator Teston and Representative Krug on this important project to our area. The Mayor's Council on Beautification continues to work on making our community a beautiful place. They've been taking care of the rain garden around City Hall, making sure that looks good, as well as those hanging flower baskets that are through our downtown corridor. Some committee members are connecting with Public Works to see what else they can do to make our community a much more beautiful place, as well as our thoroughfares. The Mayor's Youth Council teamed up with Teen Fireworks Committee this month to help raise money for our 4th of July fireworks show, which they raised $2,035 the night of the show. They also continue to work toward their goal for aquatics, as well as selling coupon books from King Cone, I will add to my report. The group is now gearing up to say goodbye to the seniors, that they'll be moving on to bigger and better things and welcoming new members in the fall. On aquatics, the construction on the splash park at Mead is well underway. The spray features arrived last week, and the shelter restroom building walls are nearly complete, and the concrete pad base has been prepped for installation. August deadline is the deadline in the contract for substantial completion, but we have been advised of at least one delay in the water journey feature that will arrive after that date. or sometime that'll push substantial completion on that feature past that date. We hope to have the project open as soon as an inspection deems it ready to the public, so we hope that the weather will cooperate and we'll have a good bit of time yet this calendar year to enjoy that feature. We have paused the Whitterfield design while fundraising continues. Pledges and donations are currently being accepted to achieve our fundraising goal in total for the entire project of $6.5 million. We continue to work with MSA and Supermass on the riverfront design process, which will be a recreational trail that will connect from under the Riverview Expressway Bridge to just south of the former Elks Building and Movie Theater area downtown. City staff and I did a site visit to a quarry actually in the city, which is next to the landfill, to take a look at the material that they've got and believe that we'll find a color that meets our expectations as well as a design that will meet folks, interested party and stakeholders in our downtown area. We plan to issue the bid documents later this year for construction to get underway as soon as winter of after the calendar turns. On the City Zoo, the city has internally held a kickoff meeting to a master plan for that project. With the West Side Lift Station project, there's good reason to think bigger than the current zoo and its geographic footprint. We plan to formally kick off with a strong youth and family voice in the project to create a master plan that is truly reflective of their interest here in August and in September. This morning, I had the pleasure of attending a county meeting on downtown parking related to the impact of the county occupying the river block. I know some of you have touched base with me about this, hearing from constituents and businesses downtown. With the county occupying the entire parking lot behind the Mead Witter building has resulted in the displacement of tenants and employee parking on the streets now, keeping spaces from transactional users and patrons. Enforcement by our police department has raised awareness of the limited term parking, which our downtown street parking is. And I also reminded businesses and the public that there is permit parking available downtown, which people can have predictable spaces on a regular basis in city parking lots. So I encourage you to do the same of constituents that contact you about lack of parking. I firmly believe that if businesses, and tenants, and employees park in permitted parking and not utilize street parking and just continuing to move their vehicles into our blocks, the issue will go away. I sent an email this afternoon about the mall study. We expect the draft to be available mid to late week next week. There was an announcement by Dunkin' Donuts that has received great response from our community, I guess to some of our surprise, maybe more so than others, about entering our market, and we continue to assist them in site identification as well as others that have expressed interest in the market here. Had a meeting with our new president of Midstate Technical College just recently. Had a meeting also with the new school superintendent this morning to kick off a good relationship with our school district on partnerships in which we've been able to support. Hosted summer school classes here last week, so again, if your seats are out of whack, blame it on the kids. And then the league board meeting. I would just want to echo the effective victory that the dark store legislation, I know we've taken action at the referral of Alderperson Kubaschak to take action like we did, and I know that was, we were acknowledged for that, and I want to pass it along to the governing body to continue to speak out about issues that we're passionate about. With that, that concludes my report. I encourage you to listen to the radio show tomorrow morning encourage residents to call in for that as well. Item number 9, my appointments to various commissions, committees, and boards, which is attachment number 2 in your packets. Council members, what are your wishes regarding that? Council members, I'll entertain a motion on that item.
I'd make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ferkey, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Zerflu. Any discussion on the appointments or on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 10, new business. Public hearing regarding the vacation of 10-foot wide north-south alley between the north right-of-way of Strodman Avenue, being adjacent to lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 of Block 2 of Daly's Plat, being part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter section of 20, Township 22 North, Range 6 East, City of Wisconsin Rapids, Wood County, Wisconsin. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishing to speak in favor of the request? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? With that, I do the same for those in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? For the second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, or the third time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? With that, I'll close the public hearing. And Joe, remind me, do we need to take action at the time? I don't see the action item on the agenda, but are we just holding the action item for a
Yeah,
later date?
normally we would take action at this point. Certainly, because the public hearing's been conducted, if you wish to wait till next month and get it as a specific agenda item, we could do that too. It was approved by the Public Works Committee, I believe, in May or June.
Oh, okay. So in that case, we might, well, I would assume a referral would have to go back through.
To Public Works.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. Our parliamentarian couldn't be here tonight, so I'll just take that as our action step. All right, move on to item number 11, report of the Planning Commission meeting held June 19th and July 10th. Planning Commission met at 4 p.m. on June 19th in the first floor conference room here at City Hall. Members present, including myself, Lee Tao, Fran Aaron, Shane Burkhart, Joe Terry, and Alderperson Todd Ferkey. Absent was Tim Burkhauser. Others in attendance included Adam Teagan, Charlie Handy, and Tim Schwecke of Civitech. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. First item was update and discussion on the zoning rewrite project with Civitech. The commission discussed the proposed Article 14 building types and Appendix D zoning districts and dimensional standards. Item 2 was update and discussion on the comp plan update with Civitech. The commission discussed the status of and next steps for the rewrite of the comprehensive plan. Item 3 is a motion by Tao, second by Aaron to adjourn. A motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 5:20 p.m. Planning Commission also met at 4 p.m. on July 10th in the first floor conference room here at City Hall. Members present included myself, Tim Burkhauser, Shane Burkhart, Lee Tao, Fran Aaron, Joe Terry, and Alderperson Todd Ferkey. Others in attendance is on file in the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. Item 1 is approval of the reports from the May 1st, May 15th, and June 19th Planning Commission meetings. There was a motion by Aaron, second by Ferkey, to approve the reports, and that motion carried unanimously. Item 2, there were no maps or plats received. Item 3 was public hearing on Plan 170460, Springfield Sign and Graphics. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow an animated sign for Culvers within the B2 General Commercial District. The subject property is located at 2711 8th Street South. Public hearing was called to order at 4:04 p.m. Speaking in favor was Greg Giese. Speaking against, there was nobody. Public hearing was closed at 4:06 p.m. Item 4 was action on Plan 170460 Springfield Sign and Graphics, conditional use to allow the animated sign. There was a motion by Ferkey, second by Burkhart, to grant a conditional use to allow an animated sign for Culvers within the B2 General Commercial District, given the following conditions. A conditional use is granted to allow one animated sign not to exceed 34 square feet in sign area. Future maintenance and or replacement of the sign is the same configuration and size, do not require additional approvals. Messages on the animated portion sign shall remain static for a minimum of 6 seconds, and changes in messages shall be accomplished in less than 1 second. Flashing messages are prohibited. And the third condition is the animated sign shall either have an automatic or manual dimming feature, and the feature shall be enabled. And 4 was a compliance with all other applicable codes and ordinances. That motion carried unanimously. Item 5 was adjournment. Motion by Burkhauser, second by Tao to adjourn, and that motion carried unanimously with the meeting adjourning at 4:10 p.m. Council members, what are your wishes regarding the two reports of the Planning Commission as listed under item 11?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Zerflu, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ferkey. Move into discussion. Are there any requests to speak?
Mayor,
Yes. Alderperson Rayom, floor is yours.
Adam. On the second, report 3, I guess, on the animated sign, and is this the same as what we did on the Realty Company further in on 8th Street?
Yeah,
And is this going to be taken care of? I'm going to vote for it, I guess. But is this the same? Is this going to be taken care of with the zoning rewrite or planning, the planning or something, so we don't have to do this each time? Or are we going to have to do this each time? Has this been talked about? Because is every business going to want this along 8th Street or, you know? And are we going to want that?
Well, I guess for the first question, the approval or the conditions of approval are similar to what was done for the Realty Company, the high school, and Quick Trip recently. Those are kind of the last three. So it's consistent in the timing and the non-animated, the non-flashing, all that is consistent. As far as what we're looking at with the new zoning ordinance rewrite, the sign code is a separate chapter. So at this point, we're not adjusting the sign code. But when we did adjust the sign code last time, which would have been about 5 years ago, at that time, the recommendation from the commission, and that was ultimately supported by the council, was to keep animated signs or these type of signs as a conditional use so that they would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. But if that is something that the council, if we're comfortable with this type of conditioning on it, that can certainly be an amendment to that sign code so that it's basically, as long as you comply with the timing, the size, you know, the lighting requirements, that it's just permitted by right. It's just a judgment call on behalf of the council.
Thank you.
Are there any other further requests to speak? Seeing none, we've got a motion, a second on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 12, Standing Council Committee Reports. Report of the Finance and Property Committee held on July 11th.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Finance and Property Committee met at 5:05 PM on Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, in the first floor conference room at City Hall. All members were present. Also in attendance, Tim DeSorsi, Sue Schill, Mayor Vruwink, Alderpersons Rayom, Furkey, Kubischak, Kellogg, and Caitlin Schuda from the Wisconsin Rapids Daily Tribune. Item number 1, call to order. The meeting was called to order at 5 PM. Item 2, audit of the bills. It was moved by Zerflu, second by Dolan, to approve check numbers 67976 through 68289 and manual check numbers 99292 through 99308. Motion carried. Item 3, beverage operator licenses. It was moved by Dolan, second by Zerflu, to approve the beverage operator licenses as presented. That motion carried. The following beverage operator licenses were approved. New applicants: Shante Alari, Teresa Drellmeyer, Jamie Green, James Hines, Casey Irwin, McCartney Sullivan, Heather Thierer, Nicole Torque, Kendra Waltenberry, Brandon Young, and renewals: Kayla Allen, Daniel Merrick, Tyler Parlow, Stephen Holzelhammer, and excuse my pronunciation of some of those. Item 4, in open session, the committee will vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. It was moved by Dolan, seconded by Hepp, to go into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes. That motion carried. 4A, continuing in closed session, the committee will discuss negotiations regarding the purchase of properties in the downtown area. The committee discussed negotiations regarding the purchase of properties in the downtown area. 4B, the committee will discuss the status of a promissory note from ECC Corrosions Incorporated and a request to extend the terms of the promissory note dated August 31st, 2016. The committee discussed the status of the note from ECC Corrosion Incorporated and a request to extend the terms of it dated August 31st, 2016. 4C, the committee may take action regarding negotiation parameters in closed session and may adjourn in closed session. In closed session, city staff was given direction by the committee on negotiations regarding the 2 closed session items. 4D, the committee may return to open session and have continued discussion regarding the purchase of properties and may take action on the purchase of specific properties. It was moved by Zerflu, second by Dolan, to adjourn. Motion carried. The meeting adjourned in closed session at 5:55 PM. And with that, I will move for approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve by Zerflu. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kellogg. Move into discussion. Are there any requests to speak on the report? Seeing no requests to speak, move into a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. 12B, the report of the Public Works Committee meeting held on July 11th and July 18th. Alderperson Rayom, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Public Works Committee met at 6 PM on Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, in the first floor conference room of City Hall, Wisconsin Rapids. All members were present. Also present were Joe Terry, Joe Eichstead, Alderperson Kubiszak, and Caitlin Koth. Item 1 was to review the DPW report. The report was reviewed. Item 2, consider providing a modification to the city roadway with width standards for 2 projects anticipated to be constructed in 2018. Those are Chase Street from 17th Avenue South to 21st Avenue South, and High Street from 12th Avenue North to 17th Avenue North. It's moved by Coth, seconded by Rayom, to allow modification to city roadway width standards for 2 projects anticipated to be constructed in 2018. Those are Chase Street from 17th Avenue South to 21st Avenue South, and High Street from 12th Avenue North to 17th Avenue North, allowing those streets to be 36 feet wide rather than 40 feet wide. The motion carried. Item 3, consider request from Alderperson Kellogg to modify the parking ordinance along the west side of Lincoln Street from Witter Street to approximately 175 north of Witter Street. The signs in the area have been updated, so no action was taken. Item 4, request preliminary resolutions for sanitary and water leads, curb and gutter, sidewalk, permanent street surfacing, and concrete driveway approaches on the following capital improvement projects. A, High Street, 12th Avenue North, 17th Avenue North, and that's for 2018 construction. B, High Street, 7th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North, 2018 construction. Item C, 4C, Chase Street, 17th Avenue North to 21st Avenue North, 2018 construction. 4D, Van Buren Street, 8th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North, 2018 construction. 4E, 7th Street North, East Grand Avenue to Oak Street, 2019 construction. And 4F, Washington Street, 12th Street North to Baker Drive, 2019 construction. It was moved by Rayom, seconded by Coth, to develop preliminary resolutions for sanitary and water leads, curb and gutter, sidewalk, permanent street surfacing, and concrete driveway approaches for the streets that I just all read off, so without going through them all again. And that motion carried. Let's see. Item 5, discuss First Street plan modification needed to address the lack of a signed municipal agreement with the Village of Buren. Lacking a signed municipal agreement with the Village of Buren, the city will end the recreational trail at Strawberry Lane, connect the roadway at the city limits, and install retaining walls and structures to allow the future extension of the recreational trail to the city limits. Item 6, discuss plans and procedures related to sidewalk defect grinding maintenance for 2017. It's moved by Rayom, seconded by Coth, that for 2017, upon inspection of defective sidewalk by the city inspector, with a determination that a shaving repair would be appropriate, the property owner would be notified, the city would have the work performed, and the property owner assessed the actual cost associated with the maintenance. And that motion carried. Item 7, review request by Terrence Peterson to construct a temporary access to their property for logging purposes using some unopened right-of-way along 25th Avenue South. It's moved by Cole, seconded by Rayom, to allow Mr. Peterson access to their property for logging purposes according to the terms in his letter dated June 30th, 2017, with any conditions recommended by the city attorney. The motion carried. Item 8, review and consider selecting an engineering consultant for the design of 2018 construction projects. As moved by Kellogg, seconded by Rayom, to select MSA Professional Services to assist the city with the design of selected 28 construction projects, and the motion carried. Item 9, review proposal for a traffic engineering firm to perform signal retiming along Riverview Expressway, along with safety improvements on Lincoln Street at East Riverview Expressway and Daly Avenue. It was moved by Coth and seconded by Kellogg to hire MSA Professional Services to assist the city to perform intersection analysis and safety improvement services along the expressway. The motion carried. Item 10 was to review the referral list. Item 19 was removed from the list. An item was added to evaluate the alternate side parking ordinance. Item 11 was to adjourn. It was moved by Cole, seconded by Kellogg to adjourn. The motion carried. The meeting adjourned at 6:55 PM. And with that, Your Honor, I move for adoption of the report.
A motion to approve by Rayom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kellogg. Move into discussion. Alderperson Kubaschak. Alderperson Rayom may have had something real quick.
I guess we got another report, I guess, if you wanted to do them both.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
There's another report, I'm sorry about
No,
that.
that's fine. However you'd prefer to do it. Do you want to separate them?
You want to do this one separately?
Does anybody have a problem? That was,
That's going to be in the second report, too, so.
right. Sure. Okay, why don't we go ahead and, we can pull that out, and then we'll take action on the balance of the report. How does that sound? So we've got a motion, a second on the report, with the exception of item number 5 of the first report. So any discussion, request to speak on that? Seeing no request to speak, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 5, I'm sorry, is it 12? 12B is approved with the exception of item number 5. That leaves item number 5 on the table. I entertain a motion on that item.
With this, I'd like to make a motion to table this until after the next report and vote on the next report.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Kubaschak until item C is disposed with. Is there a second? Second by Ferkey. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move into item C now. Tom, go ahead and, if you want to run with that report. Which is also at your table. It should be the handout that Sue came around, one of the 2 handouts Sue came around with.
This one here?
Right, the report of the Public Works Committee there should be 2 of them.
From tonight's meeting?
Correct,
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
That would be,
Public Works Committee met at 5:15 on Tuesday, July 18th, 2017, in the first floor conference room of City Hall, Wisconsin Rapids. All members were present. Also present were Joe Terry, Joe Eichstead, Mayor Verwink, Alderpersons Kubaschak, Ferkey, and Zerflu, John Bergen, Rick Bakofa, Bob Walker, and Joe Bachman. Item number 1, review municipal agreement counterproposal from the Village of Buren to connect the recreational trails between the village and city. Review municipal agreement counterproposals from the Village of Buren to connect the recreational trails between the village and the city. It was moved by Colt, seconded by Kellogg, to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Rapids and the Village of Buren to realign South Buren Drive at the expense of the city, estimated to be $15,000, and to connect the recreational trail in the corporate limits of the Village of Buren at a cost to the city of an estimated $15,000 and at a cost to the village of $10,000, contingent upon the Village of Buren approving the agreement, and the motion carried 2-1. Item 2 was to adjourn. It was moved by Rayom, seconded by Coth to adjourn. The motion carried 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 6:03 PM. And with that, Your Honor, I move for adoption of the report.
we have a motion to approve the report. Is there a second? Second by Zerflu. Move into discussion. Are there any requests to speak? Alderperson Kubaschak, you're first.
I have a definite concern about this situation. We have, the way that it's stated on the agenda is that we would be approving a counter offer for this to get this project completed. We were brought forth at committee 2 offers. Unfortunately, one of them, in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't judge the legality of it, but I can judge that it's improper, because the one that offers a $10,000 contribution from the Village of Buren is only being offered by 2 out of 7 board members. And therefore, it's improper, it's illegal. I guess I can't say it's illegal because I'm not a lawyer, but I would very, very caution us to approve this as a counteroffer. Now, I guess there's a possibility that we could create our own offer back to them, but as far as I know, we're already, that ship has sailed. We need to know what we're going to do with this. And with the current proposal, there's a proposal at the committee meeting for adopting about what the second counter proposal would have been, the improper counter proposal, but that would still leave our taxpayers on the hook for $15,000. And the question is, where would we get that money? We haven't budgeted it. And again, it's one of those where this has been in motion way before I was on the council. We, as an organization, reached out to our municipal neighbors to the north last fall. I don't want to quote a date because I don't have it in front of me, but it's been a considerable amount of time. And to suggest that we would be sending back a counter offer for the Village of Buren to approve that. Now, the question is that going to be a negotiation? Are they going to say, well, we don't like 10,000, we're going to go to 5,000, we'll counter back to 5,000? We're already done. You know, we're either approving or denying the counteroffer, and the only counteroffer that we have properly on the table is one where the Village of Buren offers $0. So therefore, with that said, I'm in opposition. I'm going to vote no on this, and we will move forward to do what we need to do to our corporate limits and make the necessary steps to finalize this project. Thank you.
Alderperson Zerflu, you're next.
So those were good points, but as far as legality, and I'm not a lawyer either, typically when negotiations go on, you know, in our committee meetings, a lot of times they're made by city staff. So it does say it's contingent upon the village board approving it. So they would have to approve it. So I think this is a negotiation process, and I think we just approved the early part of that. Of course, Sue's not here, so.
Yeah, and I would just maybe for clarification, Alderperson Kubaschak, to understand what you were concerned with particularly is or in particular was the fact that they had put forth an intergovernmental agreement that had not been approved by them yet, right, by their board. And so our acceptance of an agreement that has not been proposed and adopted by their group technically doesn't exist, is kind of if I understood your position.
Exactly, and let me clarify a little bit more, Mayor. If it's a case where this does get ugly down the road, the city is not to blame. We did not now negotiate back an intergovernmental agreement that they had offered us. They only offered us one. We're creating a counteroffer, but again, that's, and I see what you mean, Alderperson Zerflu, but I mean, sometimes the devil's in the details, but it's a case where, again, how long are we going to take on this? And I don't want to put words in Mr. Terry's mouth, but we're already past the point of negotiation. We got to know this because we got to buy materials. We've got to substitute, potentially shorten our Washington Street project, different things to reallocate the $15,000. So it is, we are not approving, and again, I don't think that it's improper. We could create a counteroffer, and that's what the actual motion is with the committee. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's now we're continuing this process when this relationship had a lot of opportunity to do that, and we got to pave the road before the end of the year here.
Thank you. Alderperson Zerflu, you had some other points you wanted to make, I think.
No, really, that was about it. I'm comfortable, you know, with how this went. So
I'm going to defer to another alder before I go, John, off table, if you wouldn't mind. So Alderperson Kellogg?
I think at the committee meeting, we talked about a deadline. If I recall, we wanted it to be identified maybe by the end of this week. So if it's not approved by Buren by the end of this week, then this would be null and void. So, I mean, I agree that we can't prolong this. There's been enough discussion on both parts and both parties. And I think they did an admirable job, but I think a deadline by Friday of this week, and if it doesn't come to fruition with a vote from Buren, then I would say it's not valid or
Expired.
expired.
As a matter of reconciliation, just to be clear, Joe, you had prepared this intergovernmental agreement with the terms, I'm just reading it now, so correct me, I guess, in terms of the approval of this intergovernmental agreement with the terms of which the committee took up.
So there was an intergovernmental agreement that was prepared by city staff, reviewed by the city attorney, and approved by the city council, and proposed to the Village of Buren. That was not approved by the Village of Buren. There have been discussions in the interim trying to see if there could be some type of a general agreement reached and brought back before city council. The village had met recently and didn't take any action to approve this. However, there has been some activity to try to make a last-minute deal. And so last Friday, I had met with some of the representatives of the Village of Buren, and in that discussion suggested that, well, perhaps since the city proposal wasn't accepted by the village would introduce a counterproposal. And so I believe the spirit of the document in front of you was a modification of the city's proposal as a counterproposal, if that clarifies.
So in order for action, just to satisfy the concern about the chicken or the egg, really, as it were, around the compilation of a agreement with the terms that were set forth, we're approving for an intergovernmental agreement that has yet to be drafted with these terms to be accepted by the body tonight.
That would be correct.
Which will then go to the village for their concurrence, at which point then it would be executed. But, so I just wanted to make sure we had that clarity on where we stand in
That's
that regard.
correct.
We do have a request to go off tables. Anybody want to yield some time to Mr. Evenson?
I'll yield time.
Okay. John, you want to come up and introduce yourself, please? There should be a little button on the base there.
Good evening. My name is John Evenson. I'm the president of the Village of Buren, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. In regard to the concern about the village's action, I certainly appreciate that, and if the council was to act and approve the counteroffer that came through committee, certainly we would look at that as a significant action by the city, and we would immediately call for a special board meeting. I do want to add, though, that earlier this year, the board did authorize me to negotiate on behalf of Buren by formal action in a board meeting, and the counteroffer that Bob Walker and I came up with is certainly under the limit that the village set for me to negotiate with. So I have every reason to believe that with Bob Walker's and my recommendation at a special board meeting, because of that prior action, that it would be embraced by the board in a positive way. And again, in regard to the communication, certainly the city has made significant efforts. Our efforts started 3 years ago when we constructed our project. We reached out to the city in regard to our plans for trail and the municipal connection, and our engineering was based on some of that input that was received by us and our engineering team by the city. So certainly communications have, I think, have been fine. They certainly ramped up in March. I looked back in my email chain and my communication records. They certainly ramped up in March of this year. There's been 2 intergovernmental proposals that have come forward to Buren, both of which have been discussed at length with visits at site. And again, I think we've been moving in a way toward resolution. I mentioned in the committee meeting, and I mentioned in some correspondences as well, we're in agreement on a lot of the key items. Buren supports the trail connection. Buren supports cost sharing. You know, Buren never came up with a position or put forth a position that we didn't want to spend any dollars on the connection. We were willing to invest in the connection. Buren supports the new handrail and safety fence along the riverside of the trail. The initial fence and rail system was very expensive, represented over half of the $40,000 cost of the initial intergovernmental agreement that was proposed to us. We asked the city engineering team to take a look at that, investigate options, and to their credit, they did. And they found a much less expensive rail and safety fence system that we were both okay with, and that dropped the project cost significantly. And so really, our $10,000 offer, we believe, is a good faith offer, which by and large pays for that safety rail fence system within the municipal boundaries of Buren, and for the most part pays for the pavement of the trail connection within the municipal boundaries of Buren. What it doesn't pay for is some of the complicated design features and design elements that some of us have not been comfortable with, that are necessitated by the narrowness of the land that we have to work with. The excavation into the riverbank, the elevation change of the trail, some of those things that were design components of the plan that the city came up with. We complimented the city right from the onset this spring when they communicated the plan to relocate the roadway and to do it in a way that really preserved the integrity of South Buren Drive and First Street and made for a very smooth, safe, comfortable, quality connection between those two communities. We've embraced that from day one. We continue to embrace that. The village's initial offer was to pay for that connection even as it came into the village of Buren, we believe because there was a disturbance of roadway that we had just invested in, which we thought was appropriate. So again, working from those items that we're in agreement with, we're very close. We'd like to see the connection happen. And you know, with that, I appreciate the fact that the committee was willing to embrace it, and I'm hopeful that the council does as well, so that I can take this to my board and get this thing done. And I would certainly entertain any questions if you have them.
Alderperson Kubitschek?
I thank you for coming in and talking with us, and I appreciate the information that you're offering, and I respect your position. Unfortunately, and you know as well as anybody that's elected to a legislative position, we can only be looking at the strict purview of the documents that we have in front of us that we're voting on. And again, I respect your position, but you say that the Village of Buren is willing for a cost share, but the only executed document that I have in front of me to be able to vote on is $0 contribution. So I don't have any other information to make my judgment yea or nay on specifically the executed agreement, intergovernmental agreement. Therefore, because that's the only thing that I can look at right now as far as testimony is, I can't agree that the Village of Buren has a desire to cost share on this.
Any other questions for John? I have a question as it relates to the cost share split. You had allayed some of the concerns that were shared by other board members in the previous meeting. And what I guess really puzzles me is why the village board agrees with, in principle, to the connection, but isn't willing to cost share on an equal basis, putting a disproportionate amount of cost share upon the city taxpayers to subsidize a connection for your residents at the corporate limits. So can you enlighten me a little bit further? So when I go back to taxpayers and say, well, why are you paying for municipal improvements in Buren setting aside the road realignment, knowing that's a connected but separate issue, but if you could maybe enlighten me and the council on that.
It's a position of some of the Buren trustees that the 25,000, and again, the $25,000 cost, the revised cost of the handrail and fence system brought the $40,000 number down to about 25. We never received an intergovernmental agreement proposal on that, but it was understood through discussions and negotiation that that was the current number. But that 25,000 represented an extremely high per linear foot cost for trail in comparison to what Buren has initially invested in. The trail system that exists currently starting near the municipal boundaries with Wisconsin Rapids onto the Cranberry Ditch Crossing and across the property to Cahoon Road. Our costs for that were significantly less per linear foot. That certainly garnered the attention of village board members. What also garnered the attention of village board members was the design elements. Some of us were uncomfortable with excavation into the riverbank. Per our engineer's professional opinion, there was a disagreement with design. Our village engineers did not believe that a guard beam or beam guard or guardrail system was necessary. And their position on that is based on a straight 25-mile-per-hour urban roadway with a curb does not warrant a beam guard, in their professional opinion. Our engineering firm, MSA, did not engineer this project. So even though I've got their opinion, and by the way, MSA they engineered our South Buren Drive project, I have to respect the outcomes of the engineering that was done at the pleasure of the city. But again, because of the discomfort with the design, dropping the elevation of the trail 3 feet or so from the elevation of the roadway, having a retaining wall barrier on one side, a fence and safety barrier on the other side, kind of creating a little bit of a obstruction on both sides at a lowered level. Some of us were not comfortable with the design, and some of us were relatively confident that the amount of real estate consumed by a guardrail system and a retaining wall equaled what the gain was by excavating down into the riverbank. By dropping down into the riverbank, the thought was they were going to gain width because of the slope of the riverbank. But again, we would have liked, and we asked for it to be looked at, what would we have if we had an at-grade trail system that was paved up to the back of the curb, not unlike what exists by Saints Peter and Paul. So there was not just the concern about cost, there was also a design concern. There was certainly the cost concern was return on investment from a position of knowing what we paid for our recent trail segments. And then in addition to that, excessive, what some of our board members considered excessive cost per foot of trail, there was also that design concern. Certainly I fall into that category, having discussions with our engineers about, questioning some of the design elements. So we thought the $10,000 compromise was a fair one, in that it certainly pays for our section of the safety rail and fence system, what would be constructed with the safety rail and fence system on the riverside of the trail, and in rough numbers, the pavement to connect our existing trail to the city corporate limits. It stops short on paying for excavation into the riverbank. It stops short on paying for retaining wall and beam guard system.
And either of the two Joes, if you could just give us a total project cost and what the limits, at the corporate limits, based on your engineering opinion or the estimates that have been prepared.
Total project cost for the city's full project, or just the trail?
So the trail portion to the corporate limits. So from, let's say, Strawberry Lane, where we're planning to terminate the project absent an agreement, to the corporate limits. Is that achievable at this moment?
I don't have those costs in front of me.
Okay.
The,
I'm just trying to arrive at what percentage of the cost is being subsidized by city taxpayers outside the corporate limits to facilitate a trail connection
Trail
for
connection,
beer,
sure.
for beer and users to
well,
benefit.
I could articulate it in a sense that the entire First Street project has been somewhat of a compromise outside of the normal standards for the city's typical design standards that we would use. Certainly for the roadway has been narrowed to a 26-foot roadway along the whole stretch of this corridor from Riverview Drive up to the corporate limits. That cross-section of roadway doesn't allow for parking, so there was already some compromises there in a sense. And then once we hit Strawberry Lane, there's one or two locations between Strawberry Lane and the village of Buren, and even to the village's trail connection that currently, or trail component that's there today, that really dictates the design of this stretch of trail section. Those two locations, we simply just run out of horizontal room to work. And once that commitment's made to try to accommodate those tight components, the retaining wall is a necessity. We've looked at a seawall option. It's a non-permitted type item. The DNR will not permit that. It's something we reviewed, we looked at, we took it as far as we could. There was a boardwalk option that we looked at, and there was alternative beam guard options. Anything that we could do to try to salvage the real estate that was left out there. The option that was put together, the cost share for Buren at $25,000, the city shares a higher percentage of that because there's a longer distance in the city limits that we have to, we've got more shoreline that's in a very tight restricted area, and but it is the higher cost. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you have something to add?
When you go to make your decision, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that, what's proposed is that the city taxpayers would pay about $15,000 of the trail costs outside the corporate limits, and another $15,000 for road costs outside the corporate limits. Just so you're aware of that. And there are ways to, to make a connection without spending those funds. However, it wouldn't be a part of this project. So, for example, if the city were to match in at the Village of Buren, both with the road and with the trail, that would result in a non-connection because the village isn't working on their project at this time. So it would leave a gap in the trail. So the proposal in front of you is essentially asking the city to continue outside the corporate limits and expend taxpayer money in the Village of Buren to make the connection happen so that it's part of this project. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Alderperson Coth, I think you had indicated you wanted to speak.
Yeah, one thing I've learned since I've kind of become involved with politics is sometimes you have to take a step back and you have to look at everything, what you're voting on. And do I necessarily feel good about spending our taxpayer dollars outside of our corporate limits? No, I don't. But what are we getting in exchange for it? We've talked at council about developing our riverfront. We've voted to do more stuff with our downtown. We're trying to build that up. We want it to be a draw. We want to draw people into it. We've talked about expanding our bike trail system. We want to make these connections. $30,000 is a lot of money, I understand. But in some ways, it's significantly less than other amounts of money that we've voted to spend. And as I look at it, I'm not a construction worker either. What I do understand is the price of asphalt is also tied to the price of oil because oil is an ingredient used in asphalt. And as oil prices continue to climb, so will the price of asphalt. Dollars lose value from year to year. As the dollar loses value, the price of this project will continue to increase. Joe Terry, as he's mentioned in many of our meetings, our construction crew is up against the timeline. I mean, he did say that we could postpone this and do it later, but if we do it later, what's the cost going to be down the road? Do we absorb the cost and do it now and get it done and over with? Maybe at a loss initially? Or do we spend the money and hope that the money that we spend by doing this is also an investment in the futures that we're trying to make with our downtown area? Do we hope that maybe people from Buren will utilize this bike trail and bike into our downtown for our events and leave money here? That's the way I looked at it when I took a step back from it, is what are we initially investing in? Are we just investing $30,000 for a couple hundred feet of trail and a roadway realignment? Or are we investing $30,000 to potentially do something to try to help the economy of our downtown area? That's what I made my decision off of, aside from not keeping a Public Works Committee meeting going for another 45 minutes.
With that, he concludes his remarks. Thank you. Are there any other requests to speak? Yes, John? We've got somebody wish to yield some time to John? Okay, good. Alderperson Kellogg yields his time.
I guess the perspective that I have from Reggie's standpoint, I think follows the line that Steve is commenting, that we want to have an attractive community. We know that the plan that the city has come up with is an ideal plan. It does the right thing with the street. It builds a trail that's solid and safe. Okay. That's what our citizens really want. And that's really what has value for this community for the long run. So, yes, it's expensive for the taxpayers, but it does have value to the citizens. And it will have value as we try to attract youth to this community, to retain our youth in this community. Those trails are valuable. So I really do believe that a positive decision here, although it's expensive, has true value for the long term. And I would support a positive decision. And I think that's where Reggie is coming from. We want to build this community. We want to build value for the citizens of this community. And I think this is a positive step to do that. I hate to see the controversy. I don't like it. I wish that everyone had come together. But in a realistic view, I think moving forward is a positive thing in the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Introduce Reggie. He's asking you to introduce Reggie, the organization.
Oh, excuse me, Regional Economic Growth Initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Are there any other requests to speak? Sue, can you remind me, did we have a motion on this particular item that you've got written down? This would be the motion on the second report. So we do have a motion and a second. Yeah, then I went into discussion. Thank you. Normally I don't open discussion before. Thank you. Okay. We've got a motion and a second on the item. Are there any other requests to speak? Seeing no, Alderperson Zerflu.
I just want to verify that the motion on the floor is to approve this as presented.
That is correct.
Because I lost track.
Thank you for the point of clarification. We do have a motion to approve the report as it is presented, which sets forth terms. So
Alderperson Kellogg, I believe that you were the one that seconded it now, but then you also added the essence of maybe having a deadline of 5 PM Friday, this coming Friday. I don't know what the day it would be, the 22nd, whatever. Is that going to be, are we going to amend that motion to include that deadline or a deadline?
I don't know if I second it, but I'll second it, and I would include the deadline to be 5 o'clock on Friday.
And Rail made the motion. Do you accept that in your original motion, that there would be a deadline for acceptance by the Village of Buren of Friday at 5 PM? Oh, I think you made a motion to approve the report. Is that correct, Sue? We've got that in the minutes, so we got a motion to approve the report, which in effect would take the action. I know you were, that's why I was surprised to see you put forth a vote to approve. You certainly could rescind your motion. Okay, we have, and I'm not the parliamentarian, and it's not here at the meeting, so I'm assuming you're going to rescind your motion. Obviously, the second then is not necessary, so at this point, there is no motion on the floor.
I'd make a motion to approve the July 18th Public Works Committee report as presented with the additional deadline of 5 PM on Friday by the Village of Buren to accept.
So we have a motion by Ferkey. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We got a second by Kellogg. Any further discussion on this motion? See no further requests to speak. We'll move into a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the report of the July 18th Public Works Committee meeting, indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We've got 2 nays, so let the record reflect the two negatives, correct? Alderperson Rayom and Alderperson Kubaschak, thank you for the record, since we don't have our electronic machine voting. I am frustrated, as I think has been mentioned by everybody. I certainly hope that when the opportunity comes around for karma and for good relations, that things will come around for the city. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. We'll move on to the last committee report, which is the Human Resources Committee meetings held July 11th and July 18th. Alderperson Ferkey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. The Human Resources Committee met on July 11th at 4 PM in the third floor conference room. All members were present. Also present were Attorney Sue Schill, Fire Chief David Kirkman, and Alderman Tom Rayom, and others on file in the city clerk's office. Item number 1 was called to order at 4 PM by Chairperson Todd Ferkey. Item number 2 was consider an approval of a request by Fire Chief Dave Kirkman for changes to the voluntary accrued vacation/sick leave donations policy to allow accrued leave donations to an employee who has a spouse, a child, or a parent with a serious health condition. No action was taken on this item. Item number 3 was an update on the vacant Human Resources Director position. Mayor Vrewink updated the committee on how the organization is approaching the vacancy of the Human Resources Director position. A position description rewrite was discussed, as well as a timeline for the recruitment and hiring process. Item number 4 was adjournment. It was moved by Ferkey and seconded by Kubaschak to adjourn. That motion carried. The meeting adjourned at 4:52 PM. I also have a second Human Resources Committee meeting report. That Human Resources Committee met today, actually July 18th. We were supposed to meet at 5:30. We ended up calling to order at 6:04. Item number 2 was the committee considered an approval of request by Fire Chief Kirkman for changes to the voluntary accrued vacation/sick
sick leave donations policy to allow accrued leave donations to an employee who has a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition. A motion by Kellogg and a second by Kubasak to approve the proposed changes to this policy. See attachment 1. That motion passed 3-0. Item number 3 was a motion by Kellogg and a second by Kubasak to adjourn. That motion passed 3-0, and we adjourned at 6:06. With that, I would move for adoption of both Human Resources Committee meetings.
A motion by Ferkey, second by Kubaschak. Any further discussion on those two reports? Alderperson Rayom, I think you've got a question or a
Yeah,
comment?
just a question. Did the crew, I guess, that was present, Justin and that, did they agree with the, none of them were here tonight. Did they agree with what was going on?
That is correct. We had
I assume they did.
we had the consensus at our first meeting, what we wanted to see as far as adjustments to what a day actually was, because days are different between firefighters, police officers, and public works. Some have an 8-hour day, some have a 12-hour day, some have a 24-hour day. So that was language that needed to be cleaned up, and that was taken care of. Deputy Chief Young was in attendance tonight, and he also was happy with the new wording in the updated policy.
Are there any other requests to speak? Seeing no further requests, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 13, miscellaneous reports. The item 1 is the Southwood County Airport Commission meetings held June 1st and June 19th. Item 2, the Park and Recreation Commission held on June 14th. Item 3, the Wastewater Treatment Commission held on June 7th. Item 4, the Waterworks and Lighting Commission held on June 14th. And item 5, the Fire Department monthly report for June. Council members, what are your wishes regarding those reports?
Make a motion to accept the balance of the reports.
We have a motion by Coth. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Zerflu. Any requests to speak on the reports? Seeing no requests to speak, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item 14, referral of, we actually had a motion to table an item after, it was item 5, which would be, we should probably take action on item 5 from the Public Works Committee meeting on the first report. I know we had that tabled, so I'd entertain a motion to remove that from, or to take that off the table.
Mr. Mayor, obviously, again, I'm not Sue Schill, so I can't give a legal opinion, but as far as if an item is left on the table, it just dies on the table. So if we want to have a motion on it, then we would remove it from the table.
Okay.
But if it's up there, then it just dies.
All right, so more as a reminder. Joe, did you have a comment?
The only comment that I have is that that particular item was the fallback, so that if there was no agreement, for example, in this situation, that the agreement is going back to the village. If it doesn't take place this week, the language in that report was the fallback language, right?
So, go ahead, Alderperson Kubaschak.
I will make a motion to take that item off. I think it's item, 2E?
5,
I'm wrong.
5 in report B. 12B5.
I make a motion to take 12B5 off the table and submit that in the motion form as if an intergovernmental agreement offered to the Village of Buren for the $10,000 cost sharing is not executed by Friday at 5 p.m., then this will be how we will proceed with that project.
So we have a motion to that effect. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Coth. Any further discussion on that? Anybody has anything to say? Seeing no request to speak, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So thank you for that. I'm glad I remembered it, actually. 14, referral of communication to committees. Is there, Alderperson Kellogg, you're first.
I have a referral. I wanted to wait until we got a new police chief, and Adams Department. It deals with a nuisance ordinance. We passed it, I can't remember the month, it could have been in November. So I'd like to have you become familiar with that nuisance ordinance. And I'd like to have annually, maybe in November each month, but since we now have a technology director and so forth, we could create a spreadsheet that might be easier to keep track and for us to be informed of people who are not following the nuisance ordinance policy. And so we just get an update, because that was a discussion, a lengthy discussion that we had when we passed it. And so I think it would be healthy for us to know, and being new, I thought I'd bring it to your attention. And it might be easier to mention it now as we create this spreadsheet, rather than in November ask for a report, and then you have to get together all that data. So I'd appreciate it.
I think they would welcome the opportunity to share an update as to where that, since it's adoption, where that's at. Thank you. Alderperson Zerflu, I think you had one.
Well, I guess I'm not even sure if this is a proper place, I would assume, but we had the special council meeting about changing tonight's meeting date. Alderperson Kubaschak made a very good point that I think we all agreed with, that we shouldn't do that because of how the ordinance is worded. I would like that looked at. I certainly wouldn't want to change full council meetings just because. I think it should be a very rare thing, but provided that the public has plenty of notice, maybe like 2 weeks, I don't see a problem with it. I feel that we are woefully, or without the clerk and the attorney tonight, and also the president, life events do happen. I think this month would have been an appropriate time to change the date. So I would like to send that wherever.
I think it would likely go to either a committee of the whole, if the council president wishes to call one, or to Finance and Property Committee, which you chair. So I think either place, in my mind, and Sue can probably weigh in on that with her thoughts as well.
And if I can refer that to that committee, then being the chair, I assume I can.
Yeah, of course,
Okay,
or
then.
add it to your agenda.
Yep.
Certainly. Other referral of communications to committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 15, adjournment. And a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? Stand adjourned. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your evening.